So in this video, we're going to look at inverse functions, and in particular, when a function is one-to-one. All right. So let's have a look at some examples. So here we're asked, are the following functions one-to-one? Why or why not? All right. So I find the easiest way to determine if a function is one-to-one is if we graph it. If we're able to graph it. So let's graph this first function, f of x equals x squared. So let's draw our vertical and horizontal axes, y and x. Let's label them, and let's graph our function. So our function is f of x equals x squared. So that's just a parabola opening upwards with vertex at the origin. So functions one-to-one when there is only one x value that maps to a single y value. So there's a one-to-one correspondence between the x values and a y value. So let's see if that's the case in our example here. So when x is 1, our value of our function is 1. However, when x is -1, then the value of our function is also 1. So this means that there are two x values that map to a single y value. So our function is not one-to-one. In this case, it's 2-to-1. Another way of determining if a function is one-to-one is to look at the horizontal line test. So the horizontal line test tells us that if we draw a horizontal line through our function at any particular point, it only intersects the function once. So here we drew this red line through our graph. It intersects the blue curve, so the graph of our function twice. Our function is not one-to-one. So this function is not one-to-one. Okay, let's look at our next function. So here we have f of x equals the square root of x minus 1. So again, let's graph our function. So in this case, our function is a transformation of a parent function. So the parent function in this case is x squared, the square root of x, sorry. So what does the square root of x look like? It looks like this. However, our transformation is 1 unit to the right. So let's do that. So let's graph our transform function 1 unit. I'm making a lot of mistakes today. That's not good. All right, it's 1 unit to the right. There you go. All right. Okay, so now let's determine if our function is one-to-one. So again, what did we say one-to-one was? For any given x value, there's only one y value. And every y value only has one x value that maps to it. So there's a one-to-one correspondence between the x values and y values in our function. So does that look like the case here? Looks like it. So for any particular, so how can we determine this? So for a particular y value, say -1, we go over the blue curve and go back up to the vertical axis as a single x value. Another way to determine if a function is one-to-one is to perform this horizontal line test. So if we draw a horizontal line anywhere in the graph, we should only intersect the graph one time in order for the graph or the function to be one-to-one. So in this case, anywhere we draw a horizontal line, it will cut the graph, our blue curve, at one point. So our function is indeed one-to-one. So yes, our function is one-to-one. Good. All right. So one last example. So f of x equals 1 over x. So again, let's graph our function. So again, we'll draw our x and y axes. Let's draw our function. So this is a rational function. We have asymptotes. In this case, we have a horizontal asymptote and a vertical asymptote. So horizontal asymptote is the x-axis, our vertical asymptote is the y-axis. Our function actually looks something like this. All right, so now again, is our function one-to-one? Well, again, let's have a look. For any y value, is there a single x value that maps to it? Well, if we go over to a particular y, well, go over to a particular y value, and we go over to our function, we find that there's a single x value that maps to it. So it doesn't look like there's any y value that has two x values mapping to it. Another way to determine if a function is one-to-one is to perform the horizontal line test. So anywhere we draw a horizontal line, that horizontal line will only intersect the graph of our function one time. So yes, our function is one-to-one. So thank you for watching. And if you have any questions, give us a shout at info@raisemymarks.com or give us a call day or evening. And again, thank you for watching.